Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of GHS-TV's award-winning talk show, Crosstalk. I'm your host, Madisyn Rix. Each week, we discuss topics important to our diverse community. There is estimated to be more than 4,000 distinct religions in the world. However, there is no scholarly consensus over what precisely constitutes a religion. Today, we are learning about 3 faiths that fall under the world's most practiced religions. In the mid-20th century, Messianic Judaism emerged, combining Christianity with elements of Judaism and Jewish traditions. Joining me to explain the group's religious practices is Elder Alan Raich from Brit Hadasha here in Memphis. Mr. Raich, thank you for talking with me today. I am very excited to learn more about your faith.
Well, I'm happy to join you on this program, and hopefully your questions won't be too difficult to answer.
For those who are just hearing about Messianic Judaism, what are your beliefs and how do they differ from both Judaism and Christianity?
Well, we could spend a long time just answering that first question. Messianic Judaism really has its roots back in the days of Jesus himself when he walked the earth. Jesus was a Jew himself, and he was the promised Messiah. And the early believers and apostles, the majority of them were Jewish people who were waiting patiently for the Messiah. And when he walked the earth, they came to follow him. So the roots of Messianic Judaism go back 2,000 years. What makes us distinctly different from Christianity, there's more similarities than differences. The main distinction is that Messianic Jews and both Jewish and Gentiles who worship in Messianic Jewish congregations recognize the Jewish roots of their faith. They observe the Jewish Sabbath. They observe the Jewish feast cycle. They are aware of the dietary laws and attempt to live a life that aligns with a Jewish understanding of the Bible itself. The main distinction between Messianic Judaism and what we'll call traditional Judaism is the belief that Yeshua, which is the Hebrew word for Jesus, that he is the Messiah. Many Jewish people came to faith in Jesus, and many did not. And so our roots are in the historic writings of Scripture, and we believe that Jesus came, that he fulfilled these prophecies, and that he lived, died, was buried, and resurrected, and that he's coming again.
As you mentioned earlier, there are dietary laws based in your faith. Is this common practice?
Well, what we're talking about is the Levitical laws, which gives distinct instructions about foods that are considered to be permissible and those that are not permissible. It essentially comes down to avoiding things like pork and shellfish and other animals that in fish species that are more like scavengers. Many people look at the dietary laws and think that they're restrictive, but we look at them as being just following God's ordinances and living a holy life, and even believe that there are hygienic benefits to keeping that kind of a diet.
There are misconceptions about every religion. Can you talk about misconceptions people may have about your faith?
I think the biggest misconception is those people who believe that the concept is being under the law, that if a person is following the instructions of the Torah, which is the first 5 books of Moses, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, and keeping these instructions, trying to work their way toward a right relationship with God. We believe that following these instructions is an expression of our faith, and we believe that salvation comes by no other but the name of Jesus, Yeshua, and by that salvation comes by grace alone, through faith alone in Him.
Every faith has core values. What are some important values taught at Brit Hadasha?
I would say the main core values are that Yeshua, Jesus, is the promised Messiah for both the Jew and the Gentile, that He fulfilled the prophecies written by many of the prophets in the Old Testament, and that salvation comes by grace alone, through faith alone in Him. One of our values is that we're called to a life of pursuing holiness through following the instructions and commandments of God that are expressed in the scriptures themselves. We believe in the entire Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, that it's one continual written word, one continual story. We look forward to the return of Yeshua, to Jesus, to come to Jerusalem, to take up his throne and usher in the millennial kingdom. We believe in the covenants of God that began with Adam, and then Noah and Abraham and the patriarchs, and ultimately the new covenant that was spoken of by Jeremiah and then instituted by Jesus Himself. And we're called to be ambassadors for God and for the Messiah to the city, and to connect with other ministries that are seeking to do God's will here in Memphis and throughout the nation and the world.
Mr. Reich, thank you for giving us insight on your faith. This was very informative.
Well, it's my pleasure, and would invite any of the listeners to join with us. If they want further information, they can go to our website, www.brithadasha.org, and they're welcome to join us for our services and other events.
It was a faith that was famously satirized in a hit Broadway musical. When we come back, the real story behind the Book of Mormon.